So we're on episode 5 of season 1, and going back through these episodes, the initial parts of MLP, the first season, they're really strong. Friendship is Magic Part 1 and Part 2 are really, really good. Ticketmaster is really good because its message is really good, and it's a really good episode that I think a lot of people need to watch to understand certain things. Applebuck season is really solid, and it's another good message, so that one is really not bad either. And now this, Griffin the Brush Off, is an extremely good episode as well. So we're going to continue with this high because it doesn't last. Season 1 does take a dip, but not yet. We'll be doing Griffin the Brush Off now. So the episode starts off with Pinkie Pie gushing about Rainbow Dash while Twilight, quote unquote, listens. Twilight's not really listening. She's just affirming, I guess, confirming. She's just like, and she's like not really listening. And I love this part because it's so great. Like Twilight's just basically brushing her off, but being kind of nice. And I think that's really funny because it has to be really hard to deal with Pinkie Pie. I know a lot of Pinkie fans think she's not annoying, and I'm not a huge Pinkie fan. I think she's great. I think she's not the weakest of the main six, but I still am of the opinion that I don't know if Pinkie Pie is a good character in the sense of, like, for the overall narrative. She is fun and she does keep a lot of things together, but she breaks tone way too much in the serious moments, and that sucks. Pinkie Pie, when she is, like, being very unhappy and sad, I think, is when she's at her best because it's a progression from her being sad to being happy. Like in Party of One, and like in the episode with Cheese Sandwich, the first one. Rainbow Dash passes by, and Twilight is relieved that Pinkie leaves and chases after Rainbow Dash. And Rainbow Dash is fairly already annoyed. She doesn't want to deal with Pinkie. And it's really funny because, not funny in the sense of haha funny, funny in the sense of we get the episode Celestial Advice later, and they want to be like, oh, they were good friends. No, they weren't. This whole season proves that they're barely getting to know each other. And Twilight is kind of the catalyst that brought them together. You undermine Twilight's importance as the element of friendship that brings essentially everyone in Equestria together. That is Twilight's entire point. She brings first the main six together, and that strengthens the bonds between everyone they meet. And then you have, say, for example, the Crystal Empire and the bonds that the Crystal Empire then forges with Canterlot. And then you have it going even beyond that to the Changeling Hive, to the to Griffinstone, to the Kirin and the Sea Ponies or whatever, with Silverstream, and then like the Yaks. This is the entire point of Twilight. So Twilight is a pony who brings other ponies together. She creates friendship, and for them to have mentioned that in Celestial Advice, oh, they were always friends. No, they weren't. That's the whole point of Twilight, and it's funny because they basically tried to retcon that to try to make Celestia look smarter, and it's like, you guys had your chance to make Celestia look smart, and you dropped the ball every single time. There's no point now. But, back to this episode. Rainbow Dash is understandably annoyed, and she flies directly into a mountain. After the break, Rainbow is hiding from Pinkie Pie. Pinkie Pie is asking around Ponyville for, if anybody has seen her, and Twilight's like, she's up there on a cloud. And we get a chase scene. It's very reminiscent of the old Warner Brothers chases. Pepe Le Pew is very, very much a name that comes to mind, with one character running extremely fast and the other one just hopping after them. If you check out Pepe Le Pew, I'm sure you'll probably find on YouTube, you'll probably find a bunch of, you could find chases that are the same as this. This is one of those moments, again, where it sucks for Rainbow Dash as a character, especially because her speed feats are so all over the place. Like, she is literally shown to create sonic booms, like literal sonic booms, and like also the sonic rain boom. And she's absurdly fast, but moments like this, it's just like Pinkie Pie is just as fast, but it's cartoon logic, so then it's Toon Force, and it just creates a plethora of issues. Pinkie Pie creates a plethora of issues amongst any sort of uh, logical stuff, which is fine. I have no problem with that. It's just, and then people are trying to be like, oh, Pinkie Pie has chaos magic, and then it's like we've never been shown that ever, so like it's just a huge issue. But yeah, right after this we get this next scene, which is more proof that they were not friends prior to this. Unable to get away from Pinkie Pie, Rainbow Dash helps her with a prank. They set up a cloud, and Pinkie's being really ridiculous about the positioning of the cloud, and Rainbow gets irritated, and they finally do. And they basically just do like a thunderclap to surprise or startle Spike, and he basically gets the hiccups. So it's kind of harmless as a prank, but like not totally harmless. I don't like pranks. I think they're dumb. I think that they should probably not be done. I think it's really, really juvenile, but some people do, so whatever. After successfully pranking Spike, Rainbow Dash says, I didn't take you for a prankster, Pinkie Pie. And Pinkie Pie is like, oh yeah, I love pranks. And then Rainbow Dash is like, you're not as annoying as I thought. This is not something that friends or people who know, ponies who know, whatever you want to say, they wouldn't say this to each other. This is further proof that they didn't know each other, because even after this, Pinkie Pie and Rainbow Dash never have this like dynamic of Rainbow Dash is like, I don't want to be near Pinkie Pie. It's because they didn't know each other, and they're starting to get to know each other. They're developing their friendships. So again, that episode, Celestial Advice, is really dumb. In that sense, I really like Celestial Advice as an episode. I just hate that it retconned the fact that they were supposed to, the main five, everyone except Twilight was supposed to be friends prior, because they clearly were not meant to be that. So Pinkie and Rainbow start pranking together. We get a montage of sorts with Pinkie and Rainbow buying stuff for them to pull pranks, and they start pulling pranks on the main six. They pull a prank on Rarity with itching powder, or not itching powder, sorry, sneezing powder, I suppose, which she smiles at, like, after they're done. And then we get a prank of them, they somehow got vanishing ink into Twilight's library, and she's writing and it's disappearing, and she smiles too. And then we finally get a short part with they painted Applejack's apples, like a bunch of them, very elaborately, in fact. And it's like, that's a weird prank. I mean, I don't, okay, and they just wash off anyways, and apples get washed anyways. So, but I really like the fact that Applejack chases after them and throws the apples at them. Like, I like that. She ends up laughing in the end too, but I really like the fact that Applejack was so annoyed and mad at that she was just chucking her own apples at them to get them off the farm. After pranking the other three girls, Rainbow Dash has her eyes on Fluttershy. She's gonna prank her, and Pinkie Pie is like, no, we don't prank Fluttershy because she's sensitive, and it'll really affect her. And Rainbow Dash is like, you're right, and she's like, we need someone who's made of tougher stuff. And this is great because it shows a respect of someone's who they are. Like, it's respectful of Fluttershy as a pony. Like, don't overstep other people's bounds. If they're not the type who would enjoy stuff like this, don't do it. And it shows that Rainbow Dash isn't a complete douchebag. Because even if she wants to prank her, she's like, no, we shouldn't. Because she won't find it funny. And then they destroy that in 28 pranks later. Rainbow Dash just literally pranks Fluttershy alone, laughs at her while she's hyperventilating and crying, and then she's like, yeah, I don't really care because you're not even brave. You're afraid of everything. So once again, when I don't know what the writers, like, obviously multiple different writers, multiple different ideas, but obviously some people respected Rainbow Dash as a character and they were like, oh, she's not a complete a-hole. And other writers were like, nah, she's a douchebag. She's going to prank Fluttershy even though it's incredibly easy and she wouldn't even really care about it. And again, it's just the later seasons with writers who didn't care because they were just hired to write episodes and they couldn't care less about the characters or the stories themselves. And that's unfortunate. So, because they don't prank Fluttershy, Pinkie essentially pranks Rainbow. I mean, maybe not because they didn't prank Fluttershy, because I think she was going to prank Dash anyways, but she pranks Dash with ink or whatever on a telescope. I think that's what they're called. And it shows that Dash takes it in stride. She takes it with a laugh. She thinks it's funny, and they have a good old time. And once again, that's Dash being a good character. This is a very good episode for Dash when she's a good character. When she's not a douchebag, when she understands boundaries, when she's not being a pompous, arrogant douche, and when she's not being a hypocrite. And again, we get incredible Dash in this episode later, but like even here it shows that Dash is not like, oh, I like pranking others, but I'm a douche and I don't like when it happens to me. And that's really good for her character because it shows that she's not always that douchebag. We get Gilda, and I really like Gilda's design. I think she looks great for a Griffin. I mean, it's really hard to not have well-designed characters in MLP. They all look so good. But Gilda, for this early, for like what, episode 5, already getting new characters, she looks really good. And I like the heavy guitar riffs they give her, like, and the like smug attitude. Obviously she's going to be a villain. You're like, oh, this character's not going to be a good guy, and I think that's really good. Next up, we get the Junior Speedsters chant, and I find this really funny because it's essentially Sunshine, Sunshine, Ladybug's Awake, but for Rainbow Dash and Gilda. And like, if I recall correctly, there's a point where I could be wrong, but I feel like at some point later Rainbow Dash makes fun of Twilight a little bit, or like she like rolls her eye. I don't know. I feel like there's some like ridicule there, but it's like, Dash, you literally do like essentially the same thing with Gilda. So we get a really interesting point here. Pinkie Pie immediately wants to include Gilda on what Rainbow Dash and her do. Obviously, there's a developing friendship between Pinkie and Rainbow, and Pinkie, instead of being like, I want you to only hang out with me, she's like, oh, Gilda should hang out with us too. And that shows just what kind of pony that Pinkie Pie is, and that's really good for her character because it shows that she's not selfish. We also get kind of a callback already to Ticketmaster, because Gilda is like kind of already like, I want Dash to myself, but it also has to do with them being able to fly, and Pinkie Pie can't really fly, but she solves that, and then we see that it wasn't even really the flying thing that was the problem. It was just the fact that Gilda is a jerk. Pinkie Pie solves the flying issue with first not a pogo stick. It would have been funny if it was a pogo stick. A trampoline. And she's bouncing through the clouds, and Gilda gets annoyed at this because Gilda wants Dash to herself. And so she challenges Rainbow Dash to fly to a higher cloud, and Pinkie Pie can't bounce that high, so they go to a higher cloud. But then Pinkie Pie solves that issue with balloons, and she basically is just floating up too. And then Gilda pops the balloons, so Pinkie Pie is forced back down to the ground. They fly higher, and Pinkie is obviously out of balloons, I guess. So, she has this crazy Da Vinci-like flying device, and like, it's wild because I feel like this is just thrown away as a gag, like, she has this crazy flight mobile. But I feel like this device and how well it works would be like revolutionary for Earth ponies to just be able to fly. Like, I know they have like Zeppelins and stuff, but this is a personal flight device that I feel like Pinkie Pie made, and there's no fanfare with it. It's just kind of like, oh, here's a gag. I'm looking into it too much, I'm sure, but I just thought that was really funny that they did that. Anyways, Gilda freaking screws her over anyways, and Pinkie Pie crashes again. Gilda's just a jerk. She's like, leave us alone, stupid idiot, and Pinkie Pie gets wrecked. Pinkie Pie goes to Twilight to ask her advice, I guess, basically, and tell her what a douche Gilda is. And anybody who says Twilight is a Mary Sue obviously does not watch this show, because Twilight, in spite of her ridiculously great and usually right demeanor, she's wrong here. She's completely and utterly wrong. There's 2 points that are really funny here, because Pinky says that Gilda is like mean, and she's like, well, I've never really met any other Griffon. And it's later established that Griffons are pretty much like this. They're jerks. But also, like, Gabby exists, so, like, she's an exception to the rule. But most Griffons are douchebags. So it's funny that, like, Pinky, having met any of them, probably would have been like, oh, they are douchebags. But then Twilight, second point, Twilight is completely wrong here. She's like, you should improve your attitude, Pinky, and it's not Pinky's fault at all. And I'm really glad we get this development for Twilight, because, again, Twilight is not a Mary Sue. She does get things wrong. She does fail. She does mess up. I think a lot of people misunderstand when I say characters are perfect. There are several perfect characters in MLP. And when I say perfect, I don't mean infallible. I mean they are written perfectly at certain points, or they are written perfectly completely. Twilight is pretty much perfect for like the first 6-7 seasons, and then they bumbled everything with season 8 and 9 in the movie. Starlight is perfect the whole way through. Starlight, from beginning to end, is perfect. She's not infallible. She is perfectly written for what she is supposed to do. But I'm glad that we see scenes like this, even this early for Twilight, to show that she's not a Mary Sue, and she does make mistakes and get things wrong. Pinky is depressingly drinking like a shake in town, and Rainbow Dash and Gilda fly into town, and Rainbow Dash is going to go do some stuff. So Gilda's like, I'm going to eat. And Pinkie Pie sees Gilda prank Granny Smith, and it's a douchey prank. Like, she scares her, basically. And Pinkie Pie tries to, like, no, it's not my fault. Not my fault. It's not, she's fine. Maybe I'm misjudging her. And then Gilda literally steals. Like, she just literally openly steals, which has to be a crime. And Pinkie Pie is still just like, no, it's, maybe she's going to give it back. And this is good evidence for, don't do this. If you see somebody literally steal, that's not good. Like, the prank thing is, okay, douchey pranks aren't a crime, but stealing, yeah, no, Pinky, she's literally stealing, this is bad. Then Fluttershy's leading some ducks through town, and she bumps into Gilda, and Gilda is not having it, and, like, she roars, and this roar is, like, reality shaking. It's really loud, and, like, of course, Fluttershy can't take it, and she cries and flies away. And then Gilda flies away, and Pinkie Pie is like, Gilda is awful. But what's really funny here, too, is Gilda is awful, but nobody does that to Fluttershy, because she knows how sensitive Fluttershy is again. And we still get that episode later, where Rainbow Dash is literally pranking Fluttershy, not for Fluttershy's enjoyment, but just to be a douche. And it hurts her character so much later. Rainbow Dash gets hurt so much by later writers, but I guess everyone does, so. Pinkie Pie throws a party for Gilda, essentially, and we start off with her welcoming the ponies, and we get Rarity and Applejack talking to each other about Gilda, and then we get Twilight asking Fluttershy about Gilda. And here's the issue. If Fluttershy would have just said something, i.e., oh, she's horrible, she yelled at me like she's impolite, she's awful, then Twilight would have been like, oh crap, what Pinkie Pie said was true. Relay that to Pinkie Pie. Pinkie Pie is like, oh yeah, she is. And then we have more than one thing, and then you can build off of this. When people don't tell the truth or they keep things inside, especially stuff like this, it creates more issues. So it may be difficult, but it's better to get things like this out in the open than it is to hold them in. So Pinkie is being extremely friendly to Gilda, like extremely, but Gilda is catching a lot of pranks. She gets hit with a lot of different stuff. Hand buzzers, like lightning buzzers. She gets I think she gets a dribble glass. She gets the non-blowout candles. She gets the pin the tail on the pony thing. She's getting wrecked. And that pisses her off. She gets super mad and she blows up. And after she blows up, she tries to get Rainbow Dash to leave with her because apparently everyone is lame except for Rainbow Dash and her, and she wants Rainbow Dash to go with her. We find out that all of the pranks, or like the majority of them, were done by Rainbow Dash. And Gilda flips out because she's like, no, what the crap? This wasn't you, Rainbow Dash. This was Pinkie Pie trying to be a douchebag to me. And Pinkie Pie is like, what? She's like, why would I do that? I was just trying to be nice to make you nicer. She's like, I'm not going to be a douche to make you nicer. That doesn't make sense. She's like, I was just trying to raise your spirits to make you a better person. Pony, Griffon, whatever. And we get what's arguably, in my opinion, probably the best Rainbow Dash scene. As far as like slice of life goes, she stands up for Pinkie, and she stands up for her friends, and she says, if you don't like it, then you need to leave. If you're going to treat my friends like this, then basically bugger off. And it's really good because this is good commentary on toxic relationships, toxic friendships even, because that's not a real friendship. What she had with Gilda may have been a real friendship prior. We don't really get to see it, so we don't know. But what it is now, and her being awful the way she is, it's not what real friendship is. It's more of a controlling relationship. And these ideas might be too complex for like a younger audience, which is again why MLP isn't just for a younger audience. And it's really good that they show that you shouldn't put up with that. As soon as you find it out, you don't entertain it. You say either you improve or you can leave. And if you leave, then we're no longer friends. And that's the right way to approach it, I think. Gilda leaves and we get resolution. Rainbow Dash apologizes and says she'd rather be friends with Pinkie Pie. And we get what we should have gotten more in later episodes, but we didn't. And that is Twilight apologizes to Pinkie for the scene where she tells Pinkie that she's jealous. That is good because characters need to be remorseful or regretful when they're wrong or when they do something wrong. And having Twilight, again, who is not a Mary Sue and is already making mistakes this early, come out and apologize to Pinkie and say, I was wrong, is incredibly good for her character. And I love that moment in this episode. Finally, we get the message, and that is to not be jealous of your friends if you can't control who they hang out with. But what you can do is be a good friend. And if you're a good friend and someone else is a bad friend, and you stay true to yourself and continue to be a good friend, then eventually that bad friend will be recognized as a bad friend, and you don't have to do anything about it. And I think that's a really good message because people are different, friends are different, and it's really hard to convince a person that somebody else is somebody they should not be around or hang around with. And this episode puts that perfectly. Just stay true to yourself. I really like the fact that Pinkie Pie did not have to change who she was for Gilda to be exposed. Is this always how it happens in real life? Not necessarily. Is it this fast? No, probably not. But does it eventually happen? Usually, yes. And yeah, that's Griffon the Brush Off. And it's an incredible episode. I really, really, really like this episode. I think it's an extremely strong Pinkie and Dash episode. I think their characters are done perfectly. I think the development of how both of them are, it shows Pinkie Pie is laughter and that she is just doing her best to improve attitudes by being friendly. It shows Rainbow Dash and her loyalty and how she will stick up for her friends and even abandon one of her so-called friends because they treated her other friends like garbage. And yeah, this is just a really good episode. I couldn't say any more good about it. I think it's one of the best in the series.